This is Annie. She lives here in the garage. She's deaf. When I had her fixed, she came back. She couldn't walk and she was deaf. So I let her stay in here. Her 4 kittens that were born on the 18th of February, I took into a shelter after 9 weeks. She's been crying for them for over a week. Kind of a sad thing, but I had to do it. I couldn't keep them. I have enough here going on. But we have a lot of predators around here, and at night she wouldn't hear them. So it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. I really want to focus on the grief thing because the whole purpose for me starting this was to help people and help myself. I'm not going to lie to you, I wanted to help myself too, maybe more than anyone. I was hurting. If you're really new to this channel and to grief and all that, you probably don't know that just prior to my wife, I lost her mom, who passed away in the same room just the year before. Same room, same hospital. Same kind of symptoms almost. Cancer and COVID. Different type of cancer. My wife had stage 3, I think it was, metastatic breast cancer. So more than likely it would have came back somewhere else. The chances were real good of that. So I'm convinced in my heart that God spared her from all that and took her home. She had great faith. A lot better than I did. I believe she did. I've lived most of my Christian life in the secular world, and then when I needed God, I would try to live in the spiritual world. And you know what? He was faithful. When I knew I was wrong and I finally told him, look, I'm sorry, God, I'm doing these things I shouldn't be doing. Okay. And he's a very forgiving Father. Thanks to Jesus, who lives in my heart. Yes. A little church in Salem, Michigan. That church is no longer there. I Googled it, and I was going to drive out there and go stand on the steps of that church where I asked Jesus into my heart. And the pastor put his hands on my shoulder after the sermon that he preached, and he gave an altar call there. Well, actually, he asked if anybody, he said, with all heads bowed and no one looking around, if you want Jesus into your heart, slip up your hand. And I'm kind of like looking around, thinking, I want to do this, I want to raise my hand, but then people are going to think, I'm funny or silly or dumb, or all these thoughts were in my head. There's a lot to my story. I was living in an abandoned house at that point. I actually wasn't living there. I was just staying there. I kind of like moved around, There's a lot to my story there. And I really wanted to share it with some of you, but I didn't want to get so involved in me, and I can't really say much more about my wife without involving some of her family and friends, and I don't know how they feel about all this, because I really don't, no one talks to me, and I don't talk to them. I don't know why that is, but it just is. I don't know what to say to them anyway, and perhaps they feel that way too, I guess. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You sort of feel alienated and shunned afterwards, after your spouse has passed on, or someone else, and I'll walk into a room and I'll forget why just seconds ago I was thinking about what I was going to do when I got in there. And then a thought will come into my head and I'll lose that other one totally. And then I'll go back and, well, let me try something else. And then sooner or later, I'll remember what I was going to do the other time. And then when I go do that, I forgot what I was just doing. I said, man alive, what's going on here? But grief is a funny thing. And then when I had COVID too, I think that brought a lot of this on. I've never been the same since I had COVID and since my wife died. I've lost just about everybody in my family, pretty much, and in quick succession too, through cancer, heart disease, and COVID, for the most part. And I never really, I just couldn't grieve like I needed to. And then when my wife died, it just came out. All of it came out, and it was just amplified so much, you know. Uh, some of us really can't handle losing someone like this, your spouse, after all these years, and then you're alone again when you depended on them. I mean, when you were a partnership, I mean, you made decisions together, you went places together, you ate together, you slept together, did a lot of things together, important things, fun things, and some things maybe that weren't so fun. A good healthy marriage has trials and tribulations because you learn through that, disagreements, and mistakes. God knows I've made them all. My wife was very forgiving. She's made a couple too. I think one or two, maybe. But I'm the one that made all the mistakes. I did that in my first marriage too. I thought I was selfish, but there was a reason for it. I had a hard time, always had a hard time making and keeping friends because I moved around a lot, and the people I knew were either truck drivers or jobs that I had, or I had that business for 15 years that I worked in, and I really didn't have time for anybody. I did used to go into bars, and I had people there I knew, but they weren't friends, A friend is somebody that will stick with you no matter what. It's just so hard to talk about this because there's just so much going on in my head. There's just so much that has happened. And I try to explain it all at once, and I can't do that. I end up just going all over the board. I need to get busy in here and start eliminating all this stuff in the garage. I collected stuff over the years because there's so many things I was going to do. My wife and I were going to do, all these projects, and I have all this equipment, tools, and so many things. And she had all these crafts projects and flower arrangements and beads, and she loved all that kind of stuff. She decorated cakes. I don't know where that woman found the time. The Legion, she was secretary there. And there was the VFW auxiliary, women's auxiliary. She was a member of that too. She was there at the beginning, years ago when she was real young. She took care of all that. I have bags of books and paperwork, and I've tried to turn some of it in, but they didn't really need it or want it, so I still have it here. Been going through it. This is going to take me a year to go through this. if I go through it a page at a time. It's going to take me a year, maybe longer. I mean, I'm not talking about sitting there 24/7 doing it. The time that I have in a day, it's going to take me at least a year, maybe longer, to go through that. Because I'm finding little notes that she wrote, little things to people and things that people wrote to her. God, where did she find the time to do all this? Go to school for 9 years, get her degree, do all these crafts, see to it that everybody had a birthday gift and a card, and all the presents and the gifts and the funerals, and yet still have time for me. Now that is a woman. That is a woman you can't replace. And I dearly miss her, man. I dearly miss her. Lately I've been doing things and I don't think about her as much, you know. I don't look at her pictures as much. I just can't, you know, because I have to do things. I can't wait any longer. Things have to get done. And so you have to kind of put it aside. You don't eliminate it, you just put it aside for a while. And then when you have a moment and you want to think about her and you want to cry a little bit, and I do a little bit, you know. I haven't had any real big cries in quite a while. Not since February. There's no guarantee we're going to be happy in this life. There's no guarantee. I've seen evil people that survive and make it through their whole life. And people that aren't evil suffer so much. I think, why? How does that happen? Does God allow that? Well, he's a big God, and he has a lot going on. There's a lot of people, and he has room for them all those who want to believe and trust in him and communicate with him. I don't look at my faith as a religion. I look at it as a relationship. When I first became a Christian on the steps of that church in Salem, Michigan, I prayed a prayer, and I believed. I believed what the gospel that he preached that day. I believed it. And I had never heard the gospel preached that way when he told that. And when I asked Jesus into my heart, I knew something happened. My world changed. It changed forever at that moment. I thank God that he gave me that experience that I had on the steps of that church. There was people all around there. Some were watching me receive Jesus. And I couldn't believe how I felt at that moment. It's a feeling you can't describe. I've heard people say that they didn't get any feeling. They just know that they changed. They felt changed. And they began to feel different about things. But not me. I mean, yeah, but I had that feeling, you know, I felt so light on my feet, like I could almost walk on air. The colors in the sky and in the trees, it were so different. Everything looked so much intense and vibrant. Certain people, when I looked at them, when I was looking around, I looked in their eyes, and those that were looking at me, and it looked like there was a light in their eyes. Not everybody, but some, you know. And I remember that, thinking, wow, what happened here, you know? And I had a friend who let me stay in his Volkswagen van at times. He was a psychiatrist of all things. I don't even know how I met him, but he let me stay in his van, probably at a concert or something, I was a hippie kind of kid, and he picked me up, and I told him, and they gave me a little Good News Bible paperback, New Testament. And I'm looking through it, and I'm telling him all about it. And he's just sitting there looking, smoking his pipe. We're driving down the road. And I'm trying to describe to him what was going on in my head. And he just never said a word. He just kind of blankly stared ahead.
No new message. We'll get back with you as soon as we can. Have a blessed day.
It wasn't long after that I got a job at the DRC racetrack, Detroit Race Course. They race thoroughbred horses, and I became a hot walker. That's what they call. And I lived right there on the grounds in the stables. They had just a one room with a bed in it, and had showers you could take. And I would walk the horses and clean the stalls and things like that, and help the grooms take care of them. And I was learning all that. And we ended up in New York months later. And there's a whole nother story here to tell about all that, but I'm all over the board again, and I'm going to have to stop this. I'm going to have to stop this here right now because I'm just going too far left or right, or I can't stay focused right now. I'll try again tomorrow. But anyway, I'll end this here, and we'll get into that some other time. I'll talk about that and share that with you, and the things that I thought of and I did, and all this is because I'm telling you all this because, I guess is because I asked Jesus into my heart. He saved me. And thank God he did, because if he hadn't, where I went and the things I did, I would have not survived. I've had some close calls in my life with a lot of things I shouldn't have done and places I shouldn't have been. And, just lucky to be alive. Well, luck probably had nothing to do with it. I shouldn't really say that. I think God was just letting me go for a reason. I don't understand this. Why did he let me do all these things, and yet I'm still a Christian? And I know it. And I knew what happened to me. And throughout my years, people I met, different ones, and my first wife, and I would tell them about Jesus and what I did. I would tell them. And then I would go do whatever I wanted to do, but I would still tell them. Poor example of a Christian. But the point here that I'm making, I guess, is it doesn't matter how far you stray. You're that one sheep that strayed away, and you come back to the Father. He'd take you right back with open arms, no matter what you've done. No matter what you've done, he'll take you back if you come to him.